If I had a crystal ball and I could look into this crystal ball and tell you guys exactly where your business opportunities lie looking forward, what is working in the future, what is not working in the future, things that we should totally eliminate, things that we should totally start doing in order to see your business grow and flourish. Imagine how amazing that would be. Guys, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do have the next best thing. We've recently just launched our opportunity analysis, and the entire premise of this exercise is to help you guys understand where the holes in your bucket currently lie. Why is that important? Because we don't want to start filling a bucket that's leaking. Guys, for a limited time only, I'm going to be offering this as a free giveaway. It's $350, but for you site shedders, you're going to get it for free. You need to head across to tradie.wiki/grow and enter the code SiteShed to get it for nothing. Off the back of it, book a time to have a chat and we'll see where it takes us. We're looking forward to helping you and seeing where your opportunities lie. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Nils Vesk, welcome back to the Site Shed podcast.
Thanks for having us, Matt.
You're joining us today for part 2 of the Reinvent Your Trade Business series. The previous episode was called Refocus and Reset Your Mindset. In this episode, it's called Reinvent How You Deliver to What the Customers Really Want. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
how you
it.
Deliver to what the customers really want. There you go. So, mate, thanks for coming back. And for you listeners and viewers out there, if you did not, by chance, get a chance to hear the first episode, do go check it out. We sort of structure these series, as most of you know, if you've been listening for a while, in a way that they stem into the previous. So it'll make a bit more sense probably if you go and check that one out first. If you need to find that, you can head across to wherever you consume your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, whatever it might be, and you can it'll be the previous one in the chain, or you can just head across to the siteshed.com and you can listen or watch it there. So, Nils, you are from Ideas with Legs. You have been on the show multiple times. We did a series all the way back, episode 88, 89, and 90 called Innovate Your Business. That was the first one. And then we did another little 2-part series called Innovative Thinking in episode 149, 150. And then in episode 248, we did a standalone podcast called Adapt or Die. It's time to reinvent. We're here today to talk about, as part of the series, Reinvent Your Trade Business. And you've got a wonderful new book called The Reinvention Spirit. Sprint! I've done it again! The fast track to rethink and rebuild your business. So for you guys out there, you can get hold of that book on a number of places. You can get it on Amazon, or there is if you head across to ideaswithlegs.com / actually, is it on the website, or is it just through Amazon at the moment?
You can find it there, or you can find it on thereinventionsprint.com.
Okay. Yeah, reinventionsprint.com. Yeah, cool. Because you've also got a checklist, don't you, for the listeners and viewers out there?
Yep. So many people want to know how to reinvent their business. So one of the things that we did was we created a checklist for people to be able to go through. So if you go to ideaswithlegs.com / reinvention-check, you'll find a checklist there that I think it might be 140 or 125 questions that methodically take you through different components that you can reinvent in your business to prompt you to get some great results.
Right. And in the previous episode, we spoke a lot to that whole conversation around mindset and building belief. And then we touched on, we spoke a lot on process and how we can reshape some of our processes in order to, set us up for delivering different results. And I'm guessing that will tie heavily into what we're talking about here. I know a lot of that mindset process and a lot of that strategic thinking and a lot of that, when you're in that planning phase, it certainly does bring a new lens over what it is that you're actually doing. And is it actually what you should be doing? is that in the interest of your customers? And so I'm pretty keen to hear how you unpack this episode, because I feel like sometimes we just get so caught up in the doing, we lose perspective on the significance of it.
Yeah. And the reason why I wanted to sort of, I guess, focus this episode on the customer is that we often forget about the customers. I know we think, oh, no, but, the reality is there is so much competition out there in contracting world. Whether you're in electrical trades, whether you're in building, whether in plumbing, in landscaping, pool building, whatever it is, there are just each and every year, there's just thousands and thousands of apprentices and new people going out there, and then apprentices or tradies leaving their original points of employers to go out and set their own business up. And one of the easiest way to reinvent your results is to start thinking more about being customer-centric. And the customer is not a dirty word. It's the reality is they're the people that pay for your mortgage. They're the ones who put a roof over your head. They're the ones that pay for our food to enable you to do all the fun, cool stuff. And it just makes sense that if we get a little bit better about understanding what makes our customers think, then we can actually find a way of differentiating ourselves or being more appealing, more compelling for our trade services compared to our competitors, which, just makes life that much easier. And the more we know about that, it makes our marketing easier. Sometimes it can actually make our marketing almost not, what would you say, irrelevant, or we can actually get rid of it if we do it the right way. Just a point in my mind at the moment that I was kind of blown away. I didn't know this, but I don't know if the marketing budget for Tesla is $0. And yet it is one of the, it's a very, very, it's the most successful electric car out there. Yes, they've got a founder, the Elon Musk, that has 1 million or so followers out there, that, 240 million followers, but they have money in their marketing, but they don't do marketing, as you know. The way that they get things sold is through a referral. They have an incredible referral fee. A lot of people don't know that, but so it just goes to show you that, sometimes the value of understanding your customer is they want to know that, that the car is not too technologically difficult, that they're not going to feel overwhelmed by the big screen when they drive. The best way we can communicate that is to actually have, someone else who's got one sell it to their mates, and, they get a good little percentage of it, and everyone's a happy camper. So there are different ways of doing it, but yeah, it comes down to understanding your customer.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know there's a lot of, again, I think so often, and we see this all the time, you get caught up in the mechanics and in the churn of what seems normal, and so, like I alluded to in the previous episode, there's, for so many years, trade businesses have had to succumb to this whole reality that if they want to show up on search engines, they've got to be, spending huge budgets on things like Google Ads. And and I've seen this. I've literally seen this happen. Like, businesses have their entire marketing strategy focused around something like retargeting, and this whole updates come where basically the Facebook's taken the pixel away. There's this iOS Facebook battle now, and the whole retargeting thing's evaporated. And literally, businesses that have just been straight up investing into this strategies have just dwindled. They've lost everything's just fallen apart. And that's not to say that businesses have necessarily stopped, but they've had to come to this grinding halt and shift, whereas, if they had have just been looking a little bit with a bit more perspective in the earlier days and trying to hedge their bets a little bit more, they would never have had that issue. I mean, I think it's a good thing that this has happened within the marketplace, because it's, as I said before, it's put a lot of the businesses back in power, and it's taken a lot of the control away from these magnates and these huge corporations like Facebook and Google and so on and so forth.
And I think a good way to think about this, and we'll talk about this in Reinventing Your Marketing in the next episode, but the concept is that we often invest heavily in what we could say marketing tactics, but we don't invest heavily in the marketing strategy.
Sure.
So the reality is the strategy is probably the most critical part. That is, what decisions we're going to do, how we're going to go about it. And then the tactics is one of the way that we can implement in marketing. And I think the reason why we get drawn to a marketing tactic is that it's like a shiny bell and whistle that says, you know what, this is a great way I can, it's going to make my life easier, X, Y, and Z. And it's always promoted and marketed that way, but it may not necessarily be the most strategic bang for your buck. And, again, it comes down to, if you know who your customers are, you might find that actually just retargeting someone, there might be a better way to target them. It might be about understanding what your customer is believing at the moment. So if I can, I'd love to talk to you about a tool that we use, which is we call it the Insight Ladder. And there's 8 rungs to this ladder that enable you to get clear about what your customers are. And there's some simple questions that will just help you to get clearer about what your customer might be thinking and what's going on for them, that can enable you to get clear about creating, either crafting how your business operates and your trade, works with them, how they market with them, and how you can get them to create great referrals by just basically understanding them better, if that's all right with you.
Sure, please.
Yeah. And so the first one we talk about is believing. What is your customer believing? And the reality is that your customer will have what we would say some very common misconceptions or false beliefs about your particular trade, your particular type of person. So I'll give you an example. My wife, Anna, for whatever reason, she has the belief that all tradies smoke. And I think it might be because they talk about smoko, like in Australia, we talk about, if you're having a break, it's called smoko. And so one of the things that she really doesn't like, because she's got a couple of infants around, she doesn't like it if a tradie is smoking out there on the balcony, sort of doing something. So that's just like one little belief that could make a big impact on, like we're a no smoking, health conscious trade services business. And people go, oh, I like that one. Another belief that a lot of people have is that tradies are messy people. And I would probably say that, about 80 to 90% of the tradies I come across are in that genre. So what? You might be thinking, well, you know what? A lot of people value tidiness. A lot of people value having a clean house. Like if you're coming into someone's house and they treat that, this is my home, and someone's coming in without, some overshoes, and they're just making a mess. It's like, shit, okay, the trading's finished. Now I've got to clean up. Like that's not my job. So what you might want to think about asking yourself is, what are any industry perceptions or industry beliefs that people might have about your particular trade that might be wrong or are not wrong, that are false for you and how you go about things? Because this is really cool. And I think we've mentioned this in one of the previous shows. There's a franchise in Australia called The Clean Plumber, who just, picked up on that concept that tradies usually make a mess. So we'll guarantee to keep the place cleaner than when we came in. How do they do that? Well, they clean up, but also it led to them inventing some overshoes that they could slip over their boots so they could go in without making a mess. Mm-hmm. So what are some common misconceptions that your customer might have about you or the particular type of work that you've got? So let's say, for example, there might be a misconception around, if I'm into additions or I'm into building what we call in Australia granny flats out the back, that we need a development application. That's a misconception in at least in our state where we are, Matt, in New South Wales. That only requires a building application because they changed the planning law. So that could be something that you could angle on your whole marketing, saying like, hey, granny flats, no DAs required. Like, oh, wow, really? Like you could be getting a whole stack of customers just by understanding or identifying that one misconception around what your customer is believing about how you go about it or your industry and things like that.
So what I'm hearing is probably going to tie heavily into the next episode, because it's essentially finding things that you can market and can make you stand out against your competition. I would say that in relation to like delivering what your customer wants, like we've found that in this, what is now our normal climate, right? So we're talking, if you want to call it post-COVID, whatever, but now the reality is people want to understand how your process around certain things. And we went through this whole exercise with loads of clients where how do we educate them about what our COVID policy is, and how do we educate them about how we have been able to mitigate and reduce that what has always been the normal face-to-face transaction when you engage a trade service business or whatever it might be. And so that that whole like understanding that the customer wants security and they want to understand how that plays out for you and your company. That's been a really marketable thing for a lot of businesses. And I completely agree with you in relation to, I mean, we've had in the last couple of weeks, I've had a builder, 2 electricians out here. The first electrician came, did a really good job, but they were cutting holes in walls. They left like stuff everywhere. We had to come in and clean up after them. The next guy came, they had the overshoes. They were so clean and tidy and so professional. The first guy, by the way, still hasn't invoiced me 2 weeks later. The second guy that came along, I did the work. He pulled out his app on his phone, paid for it right there and then, left, was happy. Like, it was just so much more professional. And he would have been 25 years younger, which is probably one of the reasons why. Just this is his normal, right? Like where the other guy's been around and operating for so long, his normal is not that. It's going to take a bit of unlearning for him to be able to sort of adopt those sort of processes. But the point being, when you look at what the customer wants, you've got to kind of put yourself in their shoes, and you've got to like try. In my experience, anyway, like how can you address their concerns without them becoming a concern, and so we see it a lot with even thinking, okay, well, if let's put you in the shoes of Anna, for example, right? So, your wife, she needs to call an electrician. She's at home alone because you're on tour, promoting your book or whatever it is. She's got 2 small children. Okay, well, let's put yourself in Anna's shoes here. She's got the lights have gone out, so she's already freaking out. There's no hot water because there's no electricity. She's got 2 small children, so she's obviously there to protect them. Now, if you're a trade business, you're an electrician, you're going to send a complete stranger out to a woman who's home alone with 2 small children, who's got no power. She's already stressed. She's already fearful. Like, how can you reduce the fear, and how can you put her mind at ease, when you're sending a technician out to their home? So we've come up with the idea, well, why don't we just send out, in fact, and make it part of an automation as part of the process, where when we send out an electrician to your home, we're going to send them a link to a page on a website, which is a team member bio. And in that bio, you're going to see a photograph of the guy. There might be a video of the guy. There might be a story about what his hobbies are and what his interests are. And so when Anna gets that email, she goes, oh, this is Tim that's coming out to her home. I know what he looks like. I know a little bit about him. Like now you probably know more than me because I know you studied a lot of this, but on a subconscious level, that immediately reduces fear, and it immediately puts that, the customer in a position of, a lot more relaxed state, because they're not feeling like they're letting in a complete stranger, and it's sort of got some authority and some backing behind it. Small things like that, really make a difference.
Oh, definitely. And it's so easy to do. I'm sure there's a whole stack of them out there. I can't remember off the top of my head there, but these where you can even do a video message to someone. So if someone sends you an email, you can actually quickly do a video message and just send it through, and straight away, there's a whole stack of different ones. That Bonjoro is another one out there. Right, yeah. But coming back to your point about what are people, fearing, a lot of that comes down to what people are experiencing. Yeah. And a simple question to ask is, what are people angry about, and who are they angry at? So generally, there is going to be a backstory for every customer that you go to who's got a backstory about a tradie story that went bad. And so you've got to kind of think about, what are they most likely to be a little bit angry about in terms of a previous experience with a tradie, or even it might have been, the work that went down. It might have been that, I saw a job the other day where this poor apartment block, they decided it was like a 1960s brick, no balconies. They thought, right, we'll put on these balconies. They put out some sort of like a suspended concrete slab out there. I think it was about 4 weeks later, they started to break down. The builder went bust, and then they're left with these sort of, broken down balconies. Then they called someone else in about 6 months later, and, they realized then they had to stop the site down because no one had put a development application in right from the start. So you imagine how angry these, those owners in that unit block, apartment block, a condominium block are what's going through their minds. So just being clear about those things can really help in so what are they experiencing? Is it that they're working from home at the moment. If you're in Australia, a lot of places are in lockdown at the time of we're doing this recording. God, there's not enough room or too much noise everywhere, that goddamn leaf blower. So they're probably going, how can we minimize the frustration of disruption of stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Another really good question I like to ask is, what are your customers valuing? So what are their top 3 priorities? So, right now for a lot of people, the top priorities is around time. I don't have the time to hang around. One of the things that's really, really crappy in Australia, at least our logistics system has always been pretty ordinary, but, I will be there between this window of that time. I don't have the time for that. I need to know you're going to be there. I want to have like an Uber app that shows where you are and when you're going to get there. Like that's what I value, is time, because time is money for me. For other people, it's cleanliness. For other people, as you said, it could be safety. But you got to kind of ask, what are those top 3 priorities? And getting those things really starts to help you to get clear about, not just in terms of being able to differentiate yourself, but then this is when you turn up and you're matching their values. You understand what they're believing. You can challenge that and show why those beliefs are wrong. And you understand what their fears are, what they're experiencing. They're going to go, oh my God, I love this guy. I'm going to refer you. And what else can we do? And it opens up a conversation, and like, not just get out of my place now because you fixed the lights. It's like, you know what? I've actually got another problem going on out there. And I'm sure we've all done this before. When you get a good tradie, you sort of then start to think, what else could I do with this tradie? Yeah. I know I do that, amazingly well. So they're the first 3 ones. There's another 5 to go: believing, valuing, experiencing. Have you got any thoughts on those, or do you want me to continue on?
No, but I completely, I don't know so much thoughts, but definitely experiences. Like and a lot of the technicians, to be fair, today, take the second electrician as an example who came out here. Like he had a part of his process, and part of his, obviously, his training. And he was just a small business owner. It was him, and he had an apprentice, like a young girl that was working with him. And he came out, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, we're here to do these, do these LED lights changeovers. But just while we're here, just can we have a quick look at your smoke alarms?" And so he was immediately prompting the next thing, right? And which was cool. And of course, I was over it. I was all over that. I understand the upsell and all this kind of stuff. But like the point being, that might sound to some people like you're being salesy and you're trying to put something in front of someone that they may not be looking for. But then if you look at it from another perspective, okay, if I've paid a call out fee and I've got an electrician out here who's going to be spending a minimum of an hour here anyway doing this job, if there's something else he can do within that hour, then why wouldn't I want to do that? And if it's something that I need, which I didn't need, but if it is something that I did need, then I would have said do it. You may as well do it. You're here. It saves me another call out fee. So, and this, I think, probably, Nils, is comes back to a very much like a mindset thing, which we discussed in the last podcast. Some people have these false beliefs around approaching a job like that, when the reality is it's actually in the best interest of the customer.
Definitely. And something that comes to my mind is the service station, or as in the US, we call them gas stations, where you go and get the gas or petrol to fill up your car. The very successful ones will go, oh, would you like a Kit Kat with that? It's only right. X, Y, and Z. And I think there was a buddy of mine who was in marketing, and she said that on average, they probably get 30% of people will say yes to that. Do you want a Kit Kat with that? Same at McDonald's, would you like French fries or something like that? Just asking that one question could be adding 30% to your income just by asking the question. And the reason why we don't do it is that we're scared of getting no's, and we've got to become more rejection proof. So I often sort of like ask myself or challenge myself, go for no. So what would be a bigger question that actually will stretch myself and go, hey, have you thought about also doing a da-da-da-da? And they go, oh, I really haven't thought about that. I've turned what could have been, we want someone to do a workshop into a 12-month program that went over 2 countries in 2 different continents. Went from what could have been a 5-figure sort of fee to I'm trying to count the numbers now, almost, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was a giant job that just came from going, you know what, I could do a workshop for you, but that I don't think it's really going to work for you. Here's the reason why. And it led into a bigger conversation. But you're right. It's about, being open and being okay with asking asking that question. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I think you kind of alluded to this, which is what people want. And the reality is what people want is not necessarily the same as what people need. And usually we end up trying to sell something what people need. And yes, they need something, but we should think about what they want. So I call that, what are they aspiring for? What are they desiring for? So let's say, for example, I had, great Sparky come around the other day where he understood that he looked at the place and, we've got these kind of, what do they call them? Hovering ceilings and things, no kind of
drop ceilings.
Yeah, no cornices and things like that. And he said, you know what? I can see you looks like you're really trying to create a minimal look here. The smoke alarms that you've got there are actually quite big. They're actually new ones now that are a lot slimmer. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but gee, they're so much more minimal. And it was like, I was sold straight away. So, because he knew, he could tell that, this is what this guy's aspiring to do, is do this minimal type of thing. He could have come in, installed, the smoke alarms that I thought were the ones that I wanted. I just didn't know about those other things. And then he went around, look at the light switch. He goes, these clipsals have actually got now a nice timber. They call them the Scando or Scandinavian look. And it's like, with a name like Nils, and looked around my furniture, looked at the kitchen, which was a new kitchen, said they would go perfectly with it. I know, the reality is people buy based with emotional decision more so than rational. Even when I've worked with, what do they call them? Procurement companies in, say, for example, giant banks where they're looking at $1 million deals, emotion still plays a part, because if a CEO or a director likes someone, they won't worry about the procurement so much. They'll go with what they want. And so part of that is just to think about, what do they desire? So when you think about your trade and your services, think about, what do they desire? Is it that you're going to be in and out as quickly as possible? Give you an example. If I'm working with if I was a tradie and I was working with an elderly couple, they were more likely, or an elderly woman, she probably wants someone to sit down and have a cup of tea with her. And so if I turned up with some, in Australia, we call them scones, or a muffin in the US, whatever you want to call it, some sort of baked or a bagel or some treat, and just say, hey, I brought some of these, that would just, what? She just wants to have a chat. Yes, she wants her lights fixed. We want me to change a few globes, but that would be like, oh, that Matt guy's a beautiful man, came around and brought scones, and like that little notion. But again, what are they aspiring for? Is it to feel safe? As you said, with security? Is it to feel cool and hip? There's another tradie I know who's got very, very successful electrical businesses where they have decided to focus on high-end, theater and tech type stuff. But you know what? People want to feel cool. So what they've got is their branding is all black. Watching this guy fitting out his van the other day, and he had black carpet on the inside, because the boss wants it all black, because that's what people want. They want people, not like we've got our white van tradie here. These are cool, smart technicians that are doing stuff. So what does it mean? So they can work on a 200,000 AV fit out for a mansion, rather than doing your $500 or 1,000, let's change the LED lights around in your local house type stuff. So yeah, understanding what people are aspiring to is really important.
The other thing as well, and if I'm jumping the gun here, tell me, but I know this is something that we realize when we're talking about reinventing and understanding, more importantly, what it is you're actually what your customer wants. Very often they don't know. And you're a prime example. Like you called it a Sparky out. You said, I need a smoke alarm. I want this one. And he goes, okay, well, maybe you don't want this one. So you think you know what you want, but the reality is you don't. Unless you ask questions, you're never going to actually get the truth. And so over the years, we've sort of been developing, and I'm not going to say we've developed, because in truth, it's a work in progress and we're always trying to refine and improve it. But we have a process now where we essentially get people to complete a form which prompts them about things they may not have considered. We know it's things they need. We know that, but the reality is they don't know that yet. So when they come to us for a website, for example, we ask the question, do you want a way to better, to re-engage some of your past customers? Of course we do. Would you like to show up on search engines more? Yes, of course we do. Like, these are things that they may not have realized that they wanted. So if we took that on face value when they came to us and they just said, oh, we want a website, without diving deeper into the actual problems or understanding what it is they're trying to achieve, you're essentially going to be giving them something that they think they want, but that is not actually what they need. So and this is something I think that business owners, and you do see tradespeople doing it quite well. They might have their 20-point check, or they might have, all these different things where they can go around and say, look, I know you've called us out here for lights, but let me just show you this audit we did, 20-point check. This, and this need to also be done, whether you do it now or in the future. It's entirely up to you, but I'm just going to leave that with you. It basically equipping people with the reality, and things they really need to decipher. So I encourage you guys out there to really, ask those questions, and more to the point, make it part of your process. Because if you've got it as part of your process, when the fellow came out here and he asked the question about the smoke alarms, it was part of his process. The other guys that came out here and did the job and left and didn't invoicing wasn't part of their process. And that sounds ridiculous. I appreciate that, but that's the reality of it. And there's probably so many of you people out there that are listening or watching this that are doing the same thing. Like, what if you've done the work, get paid?
Oh, it's amazing. And I see this in, all kinds. I was just off at the chiro the other day. I've, go to chiros, osteos, all different types of sort of people to fix me from my hang gliding accidents. And one of them, a younger guy I was working with the other day, I had my invoice and my appointment all texted to me, emailed to me, all done within 5 seconds of walking out of that place. As opposed to another one who's a osteo, she's only maybe 10 years older. And it's not so much a tech thing, it's just more of a mindset. She hasn't adapted to it, is that she uses 1 day a week to do, her admin type stuff. And it's like, well, if you actually just did it there and then, you wouldn't need to lose a day. You could either have that day off, or you could be, going down the beach, whatever it might be. But I want to come back to this concept you're talking about with what people need. A really simple way to think about this is ask yourself 3 questions. So what are the known and spoken problems? What are the known but unspoken problems? And what are the unknown and therefore unspoken problems? And why this is really good, most people will deal with the known and spoken problems. So I called you up, hey, Matt, my plumbing's on the blink. Can you come out and fix it? Okay, known and spoken, come out. Yep, we'll put electric eel down there. We'll put an inspection. We'll do this. We'll do that. Known and spoken. But at the same time, when we have what's called known but unspoken, we sometimes have a known problem, but we don't want to speak about it because we either might be a bit embarrassed about it. It might be an issue that we're just, not sure about it, and we might not necessarily have the money for it or something. So that could be something like, yeah, sure, I can fix up part of that roof there, or we can fix up your door there. I've noticed that you've got a little bit of an issue with your fascia board there coming off the side of the roof. A lot of people think this actually would be quite expensive, but it actually might be a little bit cheaper than you think. The reason why it'd be important to deal with this now is it will prevent, under the eaves getting, the wind and the rain, and it will stop that decaying even further. Oh, really? So sometimes we do that. We can have a conversation around that in a polite way. So you're respectful of them, but know that they probably don't want to talk about it because they might be, slightly embarrassed. So let's say I'm a painter. Does that kind of that still falls in your trade? Sure. Yep. So, it could be painting and decorating. And you can see that, they want a certain part, but they're not thinking about what else they could be doing. And it could be and often it's usually around a slight embarrassment. It might be about a money cost, but they know about it, but they just might not know there is a solution for it. And the third one, which is what you're alluding to before, was around what's a known problem that they've got it, but it's unknown to them. So what's unknown and unspoken? And this is when you can look down to the cause, where you can actually say, the reality is this is what's causing this. So give you an example. We live in an apartment block. We'd had some horrible plumbing issues for years. And for whatever reason, we just would always pay. The plumber would come out. They'd come out probably nearly literally once every 2 months. So the plumbers that were coming out loved it, because sometimes if the sewage was overflowing, and it only took one of them to kind of realize, we could come out and fix this again for you. But, the reality is it would be better just to replace the whole pipes. And here's why. And he kind of went through it. The old pipes, we knew the pipes were old, but he kind of explained it. And then he kind of put in an ROI. He said, it will cost you 20 grand to remove the path. We can put a concreter, put in a new path over the top. It will do X amount to do the pipes. You'll get your return of investment back in 3 years, and you'll be saving X amount per year for the next 20 years. And he understood what was going on and communicated it right. He knew what we needed, even though we were a bit embarrassed about saying it. So I would suggest that that's a really good one.
Yeah, it kind of ties into something. I say it all the time. You don't know what you don't know, and as a trusted service provider or whatever it might be, you kind of have a responsibility to educate people. And I've said this a million times as well. Regardless of what business you're in, whether you like it or not, you're in the education space. Like, we live in the information age. People are coming to you for information, and so gone are the days where you can expect just that people are going to come to you and just buy straight away without you giving them some sort of education or information around what it is you're going to be doing. And on the flip side of that, we have this mentality where we think what we do is not interesting to other people. But the reality is, what we do to other people is insanely interesting, but what we do for ourselves is incredibly boring because we do it every day.
Yeah, I would bring this back to one of our earlier parts on the ladder. We had believing, valuing, experiencing, aspiring, needing, but valuing. So a lot of people are valuing education. We only need to look on TV for the number of DIY,
Sure.
home projects. People are interested about those things. And not only from a marketing perspective, but just from there's a local electrician I love, because he's obsessed about his stuff, and he just goes into it, talks about, different transformers and, the whole thing. Sometimes he goes a little bit too far, but he understands that people value having a certain amount of information. And, our daughter was off at hospital a couple of weeks. And what I really found annoying was whether it was the doctors that kind of thought, well, you're not a doctor, so I'm not going to, give you more information than you need. And it's like, I would just pepper them with questions. And it was like, it was rare that you actually find a good doctor there that would, or from my perspective, a good doctor was one who made the effort to explain what was going down. And then they would ask the question, say, would you like some more information, or can I give you a bit more background? So she didn't, get a fire hose and just blast me with facts and stats that I might not understand. She enabled me to digest and then kind of put it further. And when she heard me asking these questions, then she said, okay, I'll up the level there. And I think we can sometimes belittle our customers in that either that, they wouldn't understand what we're doing. That's one. Or two, they wouldn't be interested in what we're doing. And, it's sort of like, I'm a bit weird. I love going to factories and seeing how things work. That's part of my job. But I think most people are interested in how things go about doing it, that type of stuff.
And I think to do that effectively, you do also have to communicate to people on their level. And by that, I mean, you can communicate what it is that you want to do without getting too technical. And, that really can be the defining moment between somebody taking you on or you winning the job and somebody who's just blasting them full of, tech speak, use like the Steve Jobs, when he launched the iPod, the first version of the iPod, and that was not a new technology. There was companies that had that technology for years and years and years, and you probably know this story better than me, but when he took that to market, instead of talking about a little device that can hold 12 gig of data and blah 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 blah, he just basically said all of your songs in one device.
And simplify it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think very often, I had this conversation with a client only a couple of weeks ago in an email, and he was saying, "Oh, this copywriting that you've done is at best an 8th grade level copywriting." And I said, "Oh, well, thank you very much, because that's what we strive for. If we were creative copywriting, we're trying to communicate these things at an 8th grade level, because people don't have your level of comprehension around your services." And so he was trying to, be offensive and have a stab at us. He was actually paying us a compliment.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you guys as well to, and I always say, does this pass the mum test? And by that I mean, if I gave this to my mum, would she understand what it is? And that's served me very well over the years. Believe it or not. No offense, Mum.
One of the things we do with our clients, and in terms of user experience design, like if they're creating a gadget or inventing a new product, we say design for a 7-year-old and an 87-year-old. If you can design for those two extremes, then you'll be able to kind of be able for them to work with it. I guess the next thing that I want to talk to on this ladder, so we've got believing, valuing, experiencing, aspiring, needing. The next one is, what are our customers thinking? And a good way to think about your customer in this component is that they're probably thinking about a tradesperson who has tried to sell what you're selling to them in the past, or they've done some work with in the past. That's usually what they're probably thinking about. And so a good way to think about, a simple question you can even ask is, may I ask, have you used some electricians, some Sparkies recently doing X, Y, and Z? How did you go with them? What were some of the challenges, or what didn't you like about their doing? So just by asking that question, people go, oh, that's a good question, because it's, something I often ask is, so for me, a lot of our jobs is going in and running programs for companies. Will say, so have you ever had any innovation consultants work with you before? What was your experience like with them? Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Where did they go wrong? Where did they fail to meet your expectations? Asking those questions is a really good way to think about what they're thinking. And another question you can ask, we'll do this, especially when there's money to be spent, is, so what's your biggest fear? So what's your biggest fear about doing this knockdown for your house? Or what's the biggest fear about putting on a second floor? And just asking the question is like, what I'm most scared about, are you going to, that we'll have to move out for a certain amount of time, or what the neighbors will think, or, that will get knocked back by council, or, whatever those things are. But really, really simple question is, what are they thinking? What have they experienced in the past? Who's tried to sell them before, and what didn't they like about them?
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Okay, last two, because I know we're getting on there. The next one is around feeling, and the last one is about behaving. So again, what are they feeling? Are they feeling apprehensive? Are they feeling excited about it? That can help, to give you a few feelers as to put them at ease, whatever it might be. And then behaving is, what's keeping them up at night? So are they staring at the ceiling? What's in their world? What are they most worried about? And, doing those different things. So if you cover those 8 different components, it not only helps you in terms of being able to communicate more and have a better rapport with your customers, but more importantly, it can enable you to start to design your business to have processes that deal for it. So again, if we come back to that concept of what are people valuing, it's, the how-to. They want to know how it's being done. We could have a PDF that we send through, or a video that documents how we go about doing things, like 3 different jobs that shows our most typical jobs. It might be, if it's valuing around cleanliness, we might have something around that. All those different components there. It just makes life so much easier.
And so go through them again.
Okay, so we've got what are our customer believing?
Yeah.
What are they valuing? What are they experiencing? What are they aspiring to? What are they needing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And how are they behaving?
Nice.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, even just taking that framework and designing your own checklist, or your own on customer onboarding, or whatever it might be, I think that would be really valuable. Love it.
Yeah. All right. I want to share with you a little acronym to help you think of ways that you can reinvent parts of your business. And the acronym is called SCRAMBLE. So we've all heard of the word scramble, like scrambled eggs, or scramble when I think it was Top Gun. Is a Top Gun second movie come out? I don't know. When you've got the pilot's got to scramble, get in the plane and fight someone. Also about, mixing things up. And so if you're ever looking at ways that you can reinvent your business, you could ask yourself, S is for substitute. Is there anything that we could substitute in what we're doing now that could improve the value, improve our efficiency, our effectiveness, improve the profitability? So substitute materials, substitute process, substitute a step. Really simple way to think, okay, anything I can substitute. The next one is combine, C for combine. Is there anything that we could combine that would enable us to increase our effectiveness or improve our profit margins? So could we combine a XYZ job with a XYZ job, ABC job? Could we combine something that hasn't been combined before? Could we combine a different bonding, a different material, a different component? The next one, R, is for reverse. What if we would reverse the process? So rather than send a thank you and a thank you gift, I don't know if you guys are doing that as tradies, but you should be doing that to your customer. What if we were to do that at the start? And we go, hey, Matt, thanks so much for booking us in this job. We want to celebrate before we've even started. Here's a bottle of champagne or a bottle of wine. Look forward to being on your house on the 14th of November. What could we reverse? The next one is A, is what could we add? or automate? Is there anything that we're doing now that we could add to? So could we add color? Could we add an image? Could we add a brochure? Or is there anything that we could automate that would enable us to get more things done in less time? The next one then is around M, is what could we magnify or minimize or modify that would enable us to create a better result? So that could be, could we minimize the amount of forms that someone has to fill out when they're going to do a contract? Could we minimize the length of the contract because, or is there anything we could magnify, make it bigger so people can really understand it? Could we have a really big picture, a poster of, what we're going to be doing with them? B is for break up or break down. Could we break up a process of how we do our work rather than doing it all in 3 days? Could we do it, in 3 mornings? Would that make it easier for someone? L is for leverage. Is there something that we're doing now that we could be leveraging on other jobs or to other tradies or other different areas? And then finally, E is for eliminate. What if we were to get rid of, if we no longer did quotations? Oh, that's ridiculous. But if we didn't, what would that mean? Well, it might mean that we create an app or we get our customers to take a photo of everything that they want and they do the measurement and we do it ourselves. And then they've done the quotation. So asking those questions. So again, SCRAMBLE is the acronym, but it's really can really help you to think on what could we substitute? What could we combine? What could we reverse? What could we add or automate? What could we magnify, minimize? What could we break up, break down? What could we leverage or what could we eliminate?
Would you apply that methodology to like tasks, or where would you use it in the business?
It could be on product, process, or service. It could be on how you go about building things, how you go about your processes, it go about how you sell, or how you go about delivering. There is not one part of your business that you cannot apply innovation and ideation to. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And in truth, it's probably like how you stay agile and how you stay ahead of competition, how you keep evolving. And I think the listeners and viewers out there are quite fortunate in the sense that for the majority of them, they're running a small business where they can be agile. And you would have seen this more than anyone. I know when we deal with big companies, it's a punish getting a decision across the line because it's got to go through 15 different people who all want to have their say. And it's like, man, this sucks when you're dealing with a small business. Like, deal with the business owner, make a call, do it, and you can just be so much more agile with it.
Yeah, definitely.
So much easier to get things to market. It's so much easier to get things out and tested, once you can just go bang, do this test and get it out there,
And in our next episode, we'll talk a little bit more about ways that you can test things without having to spend a lot of money and a lot of time. Sure. But probably I'll leave you with just one little question on this one, which is if you're gonna fix something or change something in your business, you could ask yourself, is this a problem worth solving? Because sometimes, let's say, for example, we might think, oh, you know what, we should, change the color of our trucks, or we should, change how we do X, Y, and Z. It may not be worth changing if no one else thinks it's worth changing. So if you come up with a solution that says, we're going to get rid of the quotation process full stop, and we're just an hourly rate. If that's a problem that people have or don't have, then it's no point, trying to solve it. Does that make sense? So, if you invent a widget that does something that no one wants that solved, you just wasted, could be hours or months or years or, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just always check, is this a problem worth solving? Is it going to make things faster? Is it going to make it more effective? Is it going to improve profitability? Is it going to improve the customer experience or improve referral rates? They're the things that you want to keep in mind as a question. And
in truth, that's how we approach systems within our business. We look at the flow of any given part of the business. It might be sales, it might be whatever it might be. And we say, okay, well, which is the biggest friction point at the moment? And how do we build systems around that to reduce that friction and make it run better? And then that's how we attack it. Then we chip away at the other ones bit by bit, but we always start with those big ones and make sure there is actually the biggest problem there. For example, we've got new developers that are starting. So, my lead developer, he's got an amazing, it's taken us 7 years, and we're continually evolving our project management space for web development. But, we've realized that although he knows each step of those because he created them, he doesn't have any processes behind them as such. He's just got the steps, the checklists. So now we're building up the SOPs that basically teach people how to carry out those specific steps. And that's part of his next quarterly strategic target, is just to make sure that he can give that to, when he hires a new developer, he can go, here, do this. And it is clear instructions on how to do that.
Yeah. I would recommend a bit of software if people are interested in a tool to help them map out their processes. There's a few out there, but I would recommend lucidchart.com, LUCID chart.com. It is just really intuitive for doing processes. But I would suggest that if you're ever going to map out a process, or as Matt said, giving you an acronym there, jargon, SOP, standard operating procedure, is to use Post-it notes, because they're low-fi and you can move them around. So let's say you're doing an onboarding for a new client. You want to go, how can we fix this process up? First, grab a sheet of paper and write down, what are the risks if we get this wrong? So if we don't have a good onboarding process, what are the risks? Clients think we're no good. They might not refer us or recommend us, or we might waste time. List all of them down. Then on the other side of the page, write down, what are the benefits? What are the benefits if we've got a cracking process? The reason why this is good is it's justifying this is worth doing what I'm doing. Then, and you can do this with your whole team. If you do have your whole team, I'd encourage you to be involved in this. And then get everyone, if you've got more than one, have Post-it notes, and then write down, what are the steps that we're doing or we should be doing in order to onboard this person, and just stick them up on the wall in any order or on a piece of flip chart paper. And then when you feel you've got them all down, then start to organize them from the top left to the bottom right. So logically, this should be step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then when you feel like you've got them in the right kind of pattern and flow, then come back to your checklist. Does this deal with the risk of a customer thinking that we're not competent? Tick, it does. Does this make sure that our customer is probably going to refer us? Yes. If it doesn't, then it means we should have a step in our process that deals with that risk, or creates that benefit. And you do the same with the benefits there. And then when you've done that, then you can draw some arrows around where things go, and then you can go and get onto the software program to kind of map it out in a nice way. Yeah. But that, we've done incredible amounts of programs on, reinvention around processes, and it's simple and fun to do, but, we tend to overcomplicate it because we get on the computer and we want to make it look fancy, but we actually haven't really addressed what the process is.
Love it.
And you could apply, again, that SCRAMBLE methodology to that. So is there anything in this process we could substitute? Is there anything we should be adding to it? Could we minimize that, or could we break it up, break it down, and so on?
Sure. Yeah, no, I love that. I'd love to get some, maybe do you have any resource on SCRAMBLE?
Yeah, what's in the book?
It's in the book. Okay, no,
yeah,
perfect.
it's in the book, The Reinvention Sprint. So check that out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Love that. Thank you for that. Okay, well, let's wrap this episode up, guys. You've been listening or watching this chat with Nils Vesk from Ideas with Legs. This was the second part of the Reinvent Your Trade Business series. This one was called Reinvent How You Deliver What the Customer Really Wants. In the next episode, we're going to come back with Rapidly Reinvent Your Marketing. If you missed the previous episode, Refocus and Reset Your Mindset, please do go and check that out. And guys, don't forget, go check out the Reinvention Sprint, Nils's new book. For the first time, I got that name right. You can head across to Amazon and you can get that, or there's the reinventionsprint.com is the website where you can get hold of that. There's going to be links to all this stuff in the show notes, guys. Don't sweat. Just head across to thesiteshed.com and search Nils, and you'll be able to get to one of his many podcasts, actually. He's been on the show a number of times, and you'll be able to find this one and get access to those resources. Nils, thank you once again for your time. We're going to come back and we're going to wrap it up with the third and final episode shortly.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com, where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.